I'd like to call the December meeting of the Cherokee Village City Council to order. Please join with me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let's have a moment of silent prayer, please. Amen.
Amen.
Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Roland.
Hammer. Say it again.
Crispy.
Here.
Hill.
Here.
Heffley.
Here.
Ishmael.
Here.
Thompson.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
Martin.
Here.
Quorum established.
Thank you. Next item is the approval of tonight's agenda. I'd like to add one item under new business. Item would be number 4, confirmation of appointment to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Mr. Martin.
I'd also like to add something to the agenda. Number 5, working meetings, the Monday before the regular meeting.
Please repeat that.
I would like to add to the agenda working meetings to be set the Monday before a regular meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
That'll be item 5.
Bye. Thank you.
Any others? If not, I'll entertain a motion for approval of the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Martin, second by Mr. Smith. The approval of the agenda is amended. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Agenda is approved. Any public comments on any of the agenda items? None. We'll move on to the next item then. Approval of minutes from our November meeting.
I motion we approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Smith. Was that you, Mr. Martin, on the second? No, Mr. Thompson on the second for approval of the minutes from the November meeting. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Meetings are so approved, be filed for audit. Next will be approval of the minutes from our December 2nd special council meeting.
I move we accept the minutes.
I second.
Motion by Mr. Martin, second by Mr. Smith to approve the minutes from the December 2nd special council meeting. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Minutes so approved shall be filed for audit. Correspondence, clerk. I know we have some correspondence.
Mayor and City Council, I am advising you of my retirement effective 12/31/21. It has been an honor to serve the city of the Cherokee Village and to work with the mayor and the city council to make Cherokee Village a wonderful city. I hope the future continues to be as good, and it's with sorrow and cheer that I leave wishing everyone the best. Johnny Pendarvis. Mayor and Council, it is with great reservation that I notify you of my retirement effective midnight December 31st, 2021. It has been an honor and a privilege to serve the citizens of Cherokee Village for more than 26+ years. I send well wishes for safety and health for the firefighter still serving this community. Being a member of the Cherokee Cherokee Village Fire Department has brought challenges, great joy, memories, both good and bad, friends and family. After spending nearly half of my life with the department, I am sad to leave behind my brothers in the field. I am proud that we recently retired, have been able to open positions for the young and the new firefighters to step in and provide for Cherokee Village. As stated, it has been an honor to serve and a privilege to be part of this CVFD. Richard Stowers. Mr. Russell Stokes, Mayor of Cherokee Village. Due to the recent legal events, which have levied great financial strain on our city, decisions had to be made. In order for the fire department to continue providing its service to our great community, we are forced to cut 6 paid positions. As a means to allow the younger man to keep his job and have no choice but to sadly accept this unbearable furlough as a forced early retirement. So effective 12/31/2021 at 23:59, I will no longer be employed as a firefighter for the city of Cherokee Village. In my 26+ years as a paid member, I am proud to say that I have no blemishes or demerits on my personal file, only accommodations. Over the years as an employee, I have aided and assisted myriads of residents, many of which have involved into friendships that will continue long after my tenure here ends. But my most proud friendship are those that I forged with my colleagues. These are the ones I will miss the most. True brothers, one and all. I make this decision with great sadness and some reservation. However, I am confident that the department will continue to serve the residents to the best abilities. Kelly Ford. Mr. Stokes, City Council, and the citizens of Cherokee Village. After 28+ years serving the citizens of Cherokee Village as a firefighter, it is with great reservation and sadness that I tender my letter of retirement. I only do so to provide the opportunity for younger firefighters to remain employed by the city due to budget cuts. Budget cuts have forced many to make untimely decisions by no fault of their own. Yet we do what we feel is best for our fellow firefighters and the department. Since I began in October 1993, I have given this department my best. I have proudly devoted nearly half my life to this group. This brotherhood of brave men sacrifice their own personal time with family and loved ones to come to the aid of the citizens. On duty or off, we answer the call when the phones drop. I tender this letter of retirement effective December 31st, 2021 at 2400 hours. Lieutenant Donald Sellers. That's all correspondence.
Thank you. Those individuals from the department will be recognized at our annual employee Christmas luncheon next Tuesday. And that's because all of them couldn't be here this evening, and they opted for that, so they could all be recognized at the same time. But in the interim, I think we should give these individuals a big hand for their work. Now, gentlemen, you want to stand up so they know who they were clapping for? There you are, folks. It's been a pleasure to get to know these firefighters and work with them over the terms I've been in office, and as indicated by their letters of retirement. They had a strong dedication as firefighters, and their service to community will be missed, and we appreciate what they have done to make this city move forward. Next item is the financial report.
I motion we approve the financials for audit.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Smith, second by Mr. Christophe to approve the December financial report for audit. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Report.
Abstain.
One nay. A report shall be filed for audit. Next item is the mayor's report. Monday I met with a representative from RDOT regarding the proposed bridge construction, and this individual, well, I need to correct myself, he represented a private engineering firm that has been hired by RDOT to construct a berm, concrete berm across that pool next to Iroquois Drive, and we discussed the location of where that should be and the size of it, and the height. We don't want to make it an attractive nuisance for people walking out on it once it's up, and but its purpose will be to keep that pool of water there, so we'll have a nice area for people to enjoy. And all the construction will be done with the surface of it will be done with that Aslar stone, so it looks more natural than just plain old concrete. And so when all that's said and done, it should add something. Not only will it make it easier to traverse the area down there when all those bridges are finished, but it'll add to the city. I asked him about start of work. He thought perhaps they would be doing something late spring or first part of summer. There was no written documentation on that, but he said they've been pushing to get these things done. And he said his firm was kind of looking forward to this, and so was RDOT, because this berm project was something first for them that they did, not for his firm, but for RDOT to have done. So they're at least trying to accommodate our wishes. We've had some issues with, if you're driving around the village, you notice we had some heavy dump trucks hauling rock, and that's been going to that county bridge project, but they've been using Cherokee Village as a shortcut rather than taking a long way around, while it's obviously doing some damages to some of our side streets. We've contacted the Arkansas State Police to try to engage them to check the weight of these trucks on Iroquois Drive. That's the only jurisdiction they would have. They don't have any jurisdiction on any of our city roads and streets. So hopefully we'll be something forthcoming on that. I'd like to remind everybody that tomorrow is the deadline for the Christmas lighting contest. If you've been doing any Christmas lighting decorating at your house or business and you want to get in, be sure you call here at City Hall before 4 o'clock. I'd also like to recognize one of our citizens, a gentleman by the name of Joseph Hunter. I received a correspondence, an email from the quorum court judge from Jackson County. Mr. Hunter and one of his friends were in transit, and they came across the law enforcement officer engaging and trying to subdue an individual who was armed with a knife, and apparently it was a pretty intense moment. So Mr. Hunter and his companion got out and helped that deputy and got the guy subdued and taken into custody. And the judge wanted to recognize him, and when I became aware of that, I also sent a letter of acknowledgement along with another token of appreciation for his civic dedication and willingness to get involved in something. If any of you know this gentleman, you might mention to him that we're proud to have citizens like him living here in Cherokee Village. We were also notified from Freedom Ford in Melbourne that our police vehicles could possibly be delivered. These were 2 trucks that we ordered to be delivered before the end of the year. We're hoping that that will happen, and then we can start accessorizing them and putting them to service. Prior to this meeting this evening, I attended a meeting out at Centennial Bank regarding broadband. As you know, that's been a subject of the press and Governor Hutchison and others trying to get better computer network in the state of Arkansas. As this gentleman that was leading the meeting put it, when all is said and done, we still don't want to rank 48th out of 50th with broadband and speed. They're also doing a survey, and if any of you are interested in participating in the survey, they provided me with a copy that has a QSR code on it. So if you come down to City Hall and bring your smartphone and just take a picture of it, and then you can activate the survey. There were representatives there from Fidelity, from North Arkansas Electric, from a couple other broadband servers. They're doing meetings of this nature throughout the state of Arkansas. According to the gentleman in charge, he said, we have 98 meetings that we're going to be holding. So I don't know what number this meeting was particularly. And I'll just share one story that was told, and I don't want to be inaccurate on this, but I think it was Washington County. They had a meeting and there were about 100 people in the room, and they were talking about the internet, and he said half of the people were happy and satisfied with the internet, and the other half of the people in the audience didn't have any idea what the internet was all about. So it goes to show you that there's a lot of things that need to be done in this state in terms of better performance, and there's, if you have fiber optics in the area, chances are that over the long run, broadband speed can be improved tremendously, because you can't do much with copper wire and hard wiring. And fortunately, we have fiber optics, so what they will do with all this is they're going to do this study, they're going to present it to the legislature, and the legislature will then decide how this money will be spent and who the broadband contractors will be. It's not like giving out a grant. I think they're going to approach it a whole lot differently than they have in the past, where they just gave a grant out of $1 million as an example, and who knows what happened. As he put it, he said the guy may have taken the money and gone to the Caribbean. So they're going to monitor this a lot differently, and sort of like paying as you go and see what the development is as it happens. But if you would, please take advantage of doing that survey, and that will be helpful, and that will get back to them. That's all I have. Next will be the department reports. Animal control. Any questions? If not, we'll move on. There's no report from community service. District court. District court will be held here tomorrow. Fire department. This will be your last chance to quiz Chief Pendarvis Not that he wants to be quizzed. Okay, next is there's no report from P&Z, Police Department report. I still report our police chief is still out recovering from his heart attack. He should be back to work sometime after the first of the year.
Mr. Mayor.
But he's progressing well.
Mr. Mayor, question.
Yes.
You mentioned earlier the inbound police units and associated equipment. So the department has, you know, I believe from prior
They've got equipment ordered and on hand, so
Right.
they can
so
start
they can
doing that when
fully equip those units when they arrive.
as soon as they get here.
Just wanted to make sure.
Mr. Buchanan is the gentleman in charge of that, usually.
Thank you.
If anything that's not, it's in order and will be here, so. Street Department. I know they're getting prepared and have prepared already for snowfall. Don't want to say that word, but let's hope that doesn't happen. I hate to think the amount of rain that we got yet this morning and what forecasted how much snow that would be if the weather was real cold. So. No questions there. I'll move on to other reports. A&P report. Mr. Smith, do you have anything you want to add to that?
We're still working really hard on the solar eclipse for 2024. Again, it seems like it's a long way off, and it's not going to be. And we'll also be sending 2 representatives to Chicago to the Better Retirement Living conference up there on January 27th through the 31st. Last year we engaged with well over 125 different individuals who were interested in Cherokee Village. Well, not last year, the year before, I'm sorry. Out of those, we actually clocked 5 people who actually came to Cherokee Village to visit to see if they would really want to live here. So this year we're really going to beef up our efforts and have a lot more literature going out and quite a few different ways that we can capture these individuals and see if we can't get them interested in living in our community.
I hope the weather's a little bit better when you go up there
So do I.
than last year. Airport report. I know in talking to some members of the commission, they strongly feel that when Emerson gets up and fully operating, that that facility is going to get a lot more use out there. Of course, they're using grants obtained through the FAA to make improvements. If you've read the article in the paper that they were trying to extend the runway a little bit so they could land heavier private jets out there. Grant report, no report. P&Z Commission report. Minutes from that meeting. No question. Street committee. The street committee does not meet. They will not renew their meetings until March. Tri-County Solid Waste, yeah, that report, I do know that the counties of Sharp, Fulton, and Izard all submitted, I may have mentioned this previously, submitted grants to implement funding at recycling, and those were all approved at the last meeting of the White River Planning and Development District. So plus the cities also pay an allocation. Our allocation is roughly based on $1 per person of population in the city of Cherokee Village. Welcome Center, there's no report, although they're open for people wanting to come in and purchase items for Christmas gifts. I think they've been doing a pretty good business there. No old business, so move on to new business. First item, a request from one of our citizens, Karen Page, about trails. Mrs. Page, you want to come to the microphone?
I'm Karen Page, chair of the Trails Committee, and myself, Roy Eccles, and new guy to our area, Jim Gilley, will be speaking in that order, and then we'll wrap it up. I'm just coming up to say that on November 24th, the final engineers' drawings were submitted to RDOT, and our person there, her name is Ashley, and as of today, she said the plans are still in review. So, Roy.
So since Karen and I have spoken, Ashley did respond, and she would like us to submit a right-of-way clearance, which I thought we did that on February 8th, and so we'll do that. And then we have to get environmental clearance, and then we'll be ready to go. So what does that look like to get the trail on the road? First of all, just kind of an overlay, we clear the land, that area we're going to work the trails with in January, and by February have the rock hauled in and the chat on top. And if we have bad weather, then March would be like a backup month. And then in April, open the trail. So the agenda, in my mind, looks like in January, I have a meeting with Cherokee Village, the big players in our area right here, our street department, anybody else in Cherokee Village will spearhead everything moving forward. The second meeting would be engage Sharp and Fulton counties and 4 cities, because if we can engage them, and they're going to benefit from this trail. They have big trucks, they have heavy equipment, they have skid steers, backhoes, bulldozers, excavators, and possibly even more feet on the ground where we could move exponentially quicker. The third meeting would be possibly with individuals or groups of people in the community, engaging them if they have skilled backhoe people, tractors, because once we begin clearing, we're going to need brush pulled out of the way, and that's feet on the ground, and maybe some tractors and things like that. Might call it a toe-high pitch-in. We'll do some infrastructure, and when the weather's good, anytime the weather's good, it'll be like get her done, a hurricane effort. So some of that will get to work. This is Jim Gilley. Jim and I met about a week or 2 ago, and he has a unique perspective, and he knows some big players in the game that could help us. And Jim has some real experience. He helped with connecting the Ohio River, that trail along there, with the Louisville Trail. So we're happy to have Jim in there.
Well, good evening, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak with you this evening. Roy and I met about a week and a half ago, and the conversation started and was encouraged by one of the members of the community that had pointed me his way. The one thing that I wanted to bring to the committee tonight and bring to the group is to speak about what trails can mean to us. I had an opportunity about a year and a half ago to make a decision. I was either moving to Hot Springs Village, where I had some friends that were encouraging me, or move here to Cherokee Village. So here I am. And one of the reasons behind me being here was I saw the opportunity for me to enjoy what I grew up with, which was riding a bike. Over the years, I spent many hours riding a bike. Did a lot of road biking. I was out in Colorado. Spent about 100 miles a weekend on a bike. So biking to me is a way of life. When I look at what communities have seen in the way of growth, not only in prosperity from funds raised by individuals coming in to enjoy their communities, but also by those individuals who are just like myself, who want to be a part of a community that allows them to interact and enjoy that activity. I spent the entire summer in Bentonville. Roy said, tell a story. So I will share with you that my role in Bentonville was basically in downtown Bentonville. I spent 20 plus years with Walmart, and then after retiring from Walmart, I kind of bounced around the country and enjoyed myself and saw different parts of the country. Went back to work with a company that does work for Walmart as a contractor, and I spent downtown hours every day. Right at the Foundation's location there in downtown Bentonville by the Walton Museum. And, you know, when I see what they've done in Bentonville over the last, they'll call it 10 years, but realistically, realities are it's been a lot less time than that. They may have a few things going on 10 years ago. But it's nice when you claim yourself to be the #1 biking community in the world, and that's what they claim for being mountain biking, the #1 community world. You have to have some things to drive that. And one of the things that's really interesting is the activities on the weekend. You know, you think about 100 people getting together and riding a bike. Well, they have 1,000 people to get together and ride bikes. They create events every weekend that revolves around the bikes. They have parks that are designed specifically for bikes. I know I was talking to someone the other day and I said, well, will there be gravity trails? And a lot of people don't know what gravity trails are. But if you go to Bentonville, Arkansas and talk about gravity trails, you can sit down and have a beer and have a good conversation. With that being said, what can it do for us? And that's really what it boils down to. What can it do for us? I watched vehicles drive into the Foundation's parking lot, which was a shared parking lot with the neighborhood market. I don't know if you're familiar with that segment of town. Right now there's 3-story garages going up all around the area. And what I would see on a day-to-day basis would be vehicles coming in from as far as Washington State and as far as Maryland State. And these vehicles would pull into the garage, and they were $1 million, really, vehicles when you stop and look at it. You had a Mercedes van. You had a customized Mercedes van. You had $20,000 worth of bikes. You know, that's not for one person, that's for 2 people. And you had money to support their lifestyle. So I guess really what I'm saying is Cherokee Village, to me, is optimal for that type of environment. I don't see any place really any better than this community to make their claim, and not only make their claim, but to be able to act on it. And that's the biggest thing. When you look at our community, what we have available to us, I think the Cooper group probably saw a wonderful community with the opportunity to provide some wonderful golf courses. And I love the South Golf Course. Provide some great fun on the lakes, and there's some trails out there. Nothing's changed. People have really started to make a migration, though, to communities that are into hiking, biking, and we call it walking, hiking, biking, and triking. Triking is another big activity. A lot of folks that are a little bit older and don't like setting up right on a bike will trike now today. So with that being said, I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be a part of the community. I'm really excited about the opportunities that exist in our community, and I just hope we can all find our path to get behind those activities and really see something great happen here. So, thank you for your time, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
So our next step is y'all, and what we're going to need, we'll be back in January, is a commitment for trails, for walking, biking, hiking, and trekking, a resolution and a statement. There's some huge grants out there that are available, and every one of those huge ones start with that format right there, a resolution for the city, the community, and supporting and embracing trails. Second thing, we do need to combine the Cherokee Village City Trails Committee with the SID one that's forming. And those work together so we're not fighting each other and doing the same thing in two different directions. And the third, think about the grants that will be begin to be released in February. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next item is appropriation request regarding sick pay. You have in front of you a list, these 4 firefighters who are retiring and are entitled to that. You know, we didn't expect that was going to happen when we made the budget out at the beginning of the 2021, so we didn't budget for that, but we have money available to cover that. And you're talking about people who've been with the fire department for 30 plus years, close to 30 years, maybe just a little under 30 years, so you can, and they didn't get sick too often, so you can say that amounts are there. I would entertain a motion to approve. I don't have that paper in front of me, but it's, I need the total. To approve allocating $60,748.80 to cover the cost of the sick days.
I motion we approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Smith, second by Mr. Thompson to approve that allocation. Any questions?
Yeah.
Mr. Martin?
Each one of these individuals, what's the amount of days?
Pardon?
I'm sorry, Mr. Martin, would you do me a favor? Would you remove your mask? Thanks, sir.
What's the amount of days just for the first one? How many days does that equal?
It varies per individual. It's
Well,
based on hours. So, and then pay and rate of pay. So, for example, I don't have the original pay, but I remember it was like 1,440 hours at, say, 20 some odd plus dollars.
Okay, well, I'm just confused because it says sick days. Okay, so how many sick days does $16,041.60 equal? That's all I want to know. Simple.
Yeah, that's based on hours because the fire department handles the recording. Theirs is different than normal employees.
Okay.
So they submitted an hours. If you could check with me after the meeting, I think I've got that.
That's fine. But yeah, I ready to vote.
Okay. Roll call vote, please.
Martin,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Ishmael,
Yes.
Heffley,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Chesapeake,
Yes.
Rowland.
Yes.
Okay, we'll draft those before the end of the year. Okay, excuse me. Next item is sales tax proposal. We have 2 ordinances subject for discussion this evening. Ordinance 22-1, providing for a levy of 1% sales and use tax. Clerk, would you please
Point of
read?
procedure?
Huh?
I would like to know who the alderman is that is sponsoring this, so they should be the one that puts it on the floor, and who's the alderman that's going to second this.
We're not voting on it tonight.
We're not voting on it, but we're gonna have somebody read it.
Yeah.
So I wanna know which alderman is sponsoring this, because you can't sponsor it. You can't.
I will be the alderman who will sponsor this bill.
That's fine. And who's the one that's gonna second it?
I'll second.
Thank you very much. That's all I need to know.
Now you can read the ordinance.
Ordinance number 2022-01. An ordinance providing for the levy of 1% sales and use tax within the city of Cherokee Village, Arkansas, and prescribing other matters pertaining thereto. Whereas the City Council of the City of Cherokee Village, Arkansas, has determined that there is great need for immediate improvement of municipal services and for a source of revenue to finance such services. And whereas Title 26, Chapter 75, Subchapter 2 of the Arkansas Code of 1987 announced provides for the levy of 1% citywide sales and use tax. Now therefore, be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Cherokee Village, Arkansas. Section 1, under the authority of the authorizing legislation, there is hereby levied a 1% tax on the gross receipts from the sale at retail within the city of all items which are subject to the Arkansas Gross Receipts Act of 1941, as amended ACA 26-52-101, and the imposition of the excise or use tax on the storage, use, distribution, and other consumption within the city of tangible personal property subject to the Arkansas Compensation Tax Act of 1949, as amended the ACA 26-53-101 at the rate of 1% of the sale price of the property, or in the case of lease or rental, or the lease or rental price, collectively the sales and use tax. Section 2, that all ordinance and part thereof in conflict herewith are hereby repealed to the extent of such conflict. Section 3, that this ordinance shall not take effect until the election is held on the questions of the levy of sales and use tax, at which the majority of the electors voting on the question shall have approved the levy of the sales and use tax.
Thank you. Okay, discussion.
Correct.
Mr. Barton.
Okay, let me ask that. I'm under the impression that any ordinance can only be done on one subject. Since there's two taxes on here, one's a sales tax and the other one's a use tax, shouldn't there be two separate ordinances?
Not according to our attorney.
I would like that checked out with somebody else.
Well, he's unfortunately couldn't be here this evening.
You cannot have two different topics under one ordinance. So maybe it should be under two separate ordinances. The other thing is I should direct this towards either Mr. Smith or Mr. Thompson. I am unaware of the procedure in how we determine that this is an absolute necessity and it has to be done. I don't see any data. I don't see any background other than us losing money from a specific entity that could happen to any city if a big business fails in that city.
Oh, you may respond.
Mr. Thompson.
Since you guys are sponsoring, that's what I'd like to hear from.
Sure. So, in terms of specifics, Mr. Martin, you've been provided a copy of last year's budget.
Correct.
Prior year budgets.
Correct.
You've had access to that. You've recorded for a number of years, at least 7 years that I've been on council, compilated, proposed, approved budgets. You've also been at an abundance of meetings where the specifics as to the financial challenges facing the city are abundantly clear to not only the other remaining members of council, if I can speak at least for myself and Mr. Smith and the mayor, that we have specifically, as I pointed out in previous meetings that you were present, we have lost annual revenues approximating $850,000 a year.
Correct.
We have diligently worked at reducing the expenses of the current budget, one that we went through in great detail at our last specially called budget meeting, where we, with the cooperation of the department heads and through due diligence of the budget committee, we reduced the current levels of expenditures by $600,000 a year, leaving approximately $250,000 shortfall. Now, don't hold me to specific dollars and cents, but those are the rough numbers. And you've been aware of those, at least those have been presented in open meetings, which you've had the opportunity to attend or record.
No, I wasn't allowed to last meeting.
Sir, all the meetings have been open. The budget meeting was that you attended, the last special called budget meeting. In particular, we outlined in great detail the $250,000 shortfall that is there. It is without question. It's abundantly clear in the
I was asked not to record that meeting, so I did not record that meeting. And that's why the public...
Were you present? Pardon me, I let you speak.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so you were in attendance at the specially called budget meeting.
Right.
Whether or not it was recorded or not, all the information from that meeting was made public, it was published, it was there for your review. You contacted both the committee, you contacted the mayor, you've had an abundance of time to contemplate the specific numbers that were provided publicly, that shortfall is there. So, given again the rough numbers, the shortfall is $250,000. A 1% sales tax, which currently exists in the city,
Correct.
is approximately $275,000 a year. An increase of 1% would provide an additional $275,000 a year, approximately. And again, I'm not trying to get out in the weeds on the particulars here. So if we have a shortfall of $250,000 and the proposed increase in the sales tax is to go from 1% to 2%, which our city attorney is following state guidelines from the municipal league on the language that's to be proposed to city council. He's following municipal league language as he was charged by the mayor to do. So the numbers are, we are 275 short, or 250 short. Potentially the increase in sales tax from 1 to 2% which we have to carry that to the voters at the earliest May of this coming May. So 275 versus a 250 shortfall gets us in the ballpark of meeting that shortfall, so that then, since we have that shortfall, and that's only funding 8 firefighters and fully staffing
That's
2
what I was looking for.
two firehouses.
Thank you. That's what I was looking for. There's nothing that tells me or the public if this money is going to get dumped into general fund or is it specifically for something, and that's what I'm looking for.
Okay, so all city revenues go into a general fund. And then we provide the financial reports and the budgets to allocate those resources as they're arrived. And as we have shortfalls, which we will have in 2022, we then have to rely on our reserves. And we abide by the budget to the point that, and you've been present in these meetings, specifically to for example, Mr. Kylo, and without, again, trying to get as precise in responding to your question, if we move $500 from one line item, it has to come before council in detail as to why we're moving that $500 from one line item, even within the same department, to another line item. So we have provided that detail that you're making reference to. So what I'm at a loss of at this point is that we now have before us, my understanding, correct me, Mr. Mayor, if I'm wrong, we have the first ordinance which says we have our baseline 1% authorized by the state legislature. The second ordinance, and the reason for that second ordinance, is now we're going to have to go present language in the May election to provide an additional 1% to the baseline 1% that's provided by the legislature. So our city attorney has responded with the language that you see before you. That's how we got here.
Thank you very much. That was a succinct explanation. I am used to a municipality that runs on hard times, doesn't run to the voters right away and ask for money. That's what I'm used to. I've seen it happen in other cities that you guys don't attend their meetings. See it happen in the county too. They tighten their belts and they deal with what they have to deal with. Just because we're running at such and such a budget now, that doesn't mean we have to run at such and such a budget a year from now. And we're going to have a whole new crew in here. The mayor says he's not running again, so we're going to have a new mayor in here. We're going to have at least 4 new aldermen in here. So, we have a lot of, in the back of my mind, a lot of frosting in this city that is not the 3 essentials, which is roads, police, and fire department. So the frosting in the city, I honestly don't think we need. And I believe there's a lot of people out in the world that don't believe we need the frosting, because I've lived in the city since '97. My road is not any better now than it was in '97. And there's a lot of people that will tell you that. And people are looking for, if I'm going to ask them for tax, they want to know where that money's going to be spent. So if I say it's specifically for the fire department and the roads, and that's where all that 1% is going to go, I could probably sell that. But if it's going to go into a general budget and the new administration decides, I don't like this, I'm going to change it to something else. Well, then you got a whole bunch of people, you're telling them one thing, and then the next administration changes. That's what we as a city council are missing, is long-term planning. Something that all the citizens can get behind. Because there's a lot of things we need to do, and we should be looking 30 years down the road. I'm going off topic, I'm sorry. But that is part of this discussion. If I'm going to sell this 1-cent sales tax to people, I want to be able to tell them this is what it's for, and this is why we're doing it. Not just because we have a shortfall, because that could happen in any community. We got COVID happening, we got the ambulance service looking for money, we got people that are poorer than poor, and everybody's got their fingers in their pocket. All I want to do is be able to sell it to somebody, look them in the eye, and give them a good reason for doing it, other than, you know, an entity failed, and now we have to deal with it, and we want to maintain this, but we don't have to maintain this.
And you're entitled to your opinion, Mr. Martin, and you can cast a vote in favor or against.
I understand.
But what we're here looking at tonight, we're looking at the language that was put before us by our city attorney to see if we can move forward. Now, in terms of living within a budget or adjusting to it, we've had 4 months. We have now almost completed 4 months of half of the normal revenues as a result of the lawsuit from SID.
Correct.
That, unless a member of the budget committee can correct me on it, that's somewhere in the neighborhood of a couple $100,000 on that shortfall. Next year, we have the full $850,000 shortfall, because even if you go through this ordinance tonight and you choose or don't choose to get out there and try and assist the community in trying to get
In
this.
your opinion, it's assisting the community. In your opinion.
Whether you choose to get behind a sales tax increase in this community is your personal choice. But the reality of it is we will go through the 2022 year $850,000 less revenue than what we were prior to the lawsuit. The earliest that we will see one dime of increased sales tax revenue will be January of 23. So the shortfall we're talking about is over $1 million, and we're coping with that. We are living with that. You can ask that chief of the fire department how much he and his department, he and 4 other fire department personnel are living with the reality of that.
Because somebody forced them to retire.
No, they volunteered to retire, and I'm not here to discuss that because you keep running down rabbit trails. So I'm going to bring you back to this ordinance, this language. That is what is before this city council. It's not a discussion of whether or not somebody spent a dime or a dollar one direction or the other. What is in front of this council is the legal language in 2 ordinances. That is what's on the floor in front of the council at this time. It's not a history lesson. It's not a budget lesson. It is the reality of the legal language that is presented
So it's
in
not
front
to
of us.
approve or disapprove this ordinance? It's not to approve or disapprove this ordinance.
The ordinance that is there, ordinance number 1, is simply a recognition of what's already provided by legislative action for every community in this state. A 1% baseline sales tax
That we already have.
that is provided by the legislature. The mayor can clarify whether or not we have to approve the baseline 1%.
We already have that on the books. We're
That's
paying 1%
there
right
by state
Correct.
legislation.
now. That I understand.
The second ordinance pertains to an additional 1% to try and close the gap, partly close the gap in the revenue shortfall. There's going to be a lot of other issues brought before this city council. Whether it's the gentlemen that were here before trying to increase economic activity through trails, whether it's the proposal to bring another business into this community, there's going to be a whole lot of other things. Mr. Smith is participating in a group that's trying to pursue all kinds of different ideas. This is the most immediate, positive financial impact step that we can move forward as council to bring forward to this community. And it will be up to the citizens to either vote it in or vote it out. And whether you choose to make a decision to get behind it is your personal decision to make. But we're looking at the language of the ordinance, whether or not our city attorney has any corrective, like in ordinance number 2, if you look at the first whereas, the date is incorrect. So there's a typo there. So that's what we're kind of here to look at this and say, okay, our city attorney who's been charged with going to follow the language set out by the municipal league has presented this, and all we're doing is saying whether or not we approve that language.
So we're not approving or disapproving of the ordinance, we're approving or disapproving of the language of the ordinance.
That is for further discussion with the mayor as to whether or not, what exactly we're presenting here is if the attorney is going to go back and rework some of the language, because if you look at ordinance number 2,
Correct.
it's passing on a future date.
Correct.
It's 2 months forward. So tonight, it doesn't say that we're voting and passing it tonight. It's the first reading of an ordinance that's proposed.
Correct.
To be approved 2 months in the future. Now, if you'd like to look through with the rest of the council and review the language and vote on whether or not we need to make some adjustments, great. But sir, with all due respect, if you'd like to sit down and form a committee and discuss you know, whether or not we should cut our budget further or whether or not we should expand our budget, I'd be more than happy to entertain that in another venue. But can we focus on the issue in front of us,
Yes,
please?
sir. Yes, sir. I understand exactly what you just said. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Excuse me, let me interrupt here. Aside from the type of errors that may occur, I didn't catch that one about the date, but I see what you're referring to, Mr. Thompson. The only other change that would be posed would be whether that 1% tax would be reduced or increased. That would be the only other.
On the first ordinance?
In the first ordinance, yes.
Okay, so just for my confusion, that is a sales tax, correct? Or is it a sales and use tax?
Yeah, this is all, it's a sales and use tax.
Because the use tax is, you're talking rental properties, that's different than the sales tax. That's why I first asked about splitting it into two different ordinances.
Mr. Martin, I doubt if our city attorney's made an error here on this.
He's made several errors since I have been here, one that happened 3 months ago that I corrected.
Well, since he's not here to,
I can't argue it with him, so I can't ask him.
Okay.
So those were just my questions. I'm done. I'm finished. We should vote on it if you want to vote on it.
When you file your sales and use tax, you don't file for sales or use. It's under the same category.
So it is all the same something.
On the state website, it's on the same category that you file under.
That
So
explains
that's
it.
where, that would likely be where the terminology came from. I don't know.
Pam, did you have anything to add?
we don't need to vote on anything
Okay.
tonight. All we do,
Just
if
the first
you found any errors here that, besides that one that was mentioned, unless you want to change the amount, then we'll
Everything's good.
move on with that. We need to, any other? Will you read the second ordinance, please?
Before I start, I found that and corrected that this morning when I read it. Ordinance number 2022-02. An ordinance calling special election in the city of Cherokee Village, Arkansas, on the question of levying a 1% sales and use tax within the city of Cherokee Village, Arkansas, prescribing other matters pertaining thereto and declaring an emergency. Whereas the City Council of the City of Cherokee Village, Arkansas has passed on February 17, 2022, an ordinance number 2022-02, providing for the levy of a 1% sales and use tax within the city. And whereas the purpose of this ordinance is to call a special election on the question of the levy of a sales and use tax. Now therefore, be it ordained by the City Council of the City of the Cherokee Village, Arkansas. Section 1. There will be and there is hereby called a special election to be held on May 24th, 2022, at which election there shall be submitted to the electors of the city of the question of the levy of the sales and use tax. Section 2. That the question of levying the sales and use tax shall be placed on the ballot for election in substantially the following form. Vote on measuring by placing an X in the square opposed opposite of the measure either for or against. For adoption of 1% local sales and use tax within the city of Cherokee Village, Arkansas. Against adoption of 1% local sales and use tax within the city of Cherokee Village, Arkansas. Section 3. That the election shall be held and conducted and the vote canvassed and the results declared under the law and in the manner now provided by municipal elections, unless otherwise provided in Title 26, Chapter 75, Subchapter 2 of the Arkansas Code of 1987. Annotated and only qualified voters of the city 4, that the result of the election shall be proclaimed by the mayor and his proclamation shall be published one time in the newspaper having a general circulation in the city, which proclamation shall advise that the results of the proclamation shall be conclusive unless attacked in the courts within 30 days after the date of publication. Section 5, that a copy of the ordinance shall be given to the County Board of Election Commissioners so the necessary election officials and supplies may be provided. A certified copy of the ordinance shall be provided to the Commissioners of the Revenues of the State of Arkansas as soon as practical. Section 6, that the mayor and the city clerk or recorder for and on behalf of the city be and they are hereby authorized and directed to do any and all things necessary to call and hold a special election as herein provided, and if the levy of the sales and use tax is approved by the electors, the causes of sale and use tax to be collected in accordance with the authorizing legislation and to perform all acts to whatever nature necessary in timely fashion to carry out the authority conferred in this ordinance. Section 7, that all ordinance and part thereof in conflict herewith be hereby repealed to the extent of such conflict. Section 8, it is hereby certain and declared that there is a great need to establish a stable source of revenue to finance vital municipal services in order to promote and protect the health, safety, and welfare of the city and its inhabitants. It is therefore declared that the emergency exists and the ordinance being necessary for the immediate preservation of the public peace, health, and safety shall be enforced and take effect immediately from and after its passage.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question. On the language that the city attorney put under both items, for adoption and against adoption, I would ask, is the language supposed to read of A, 1% local sales and use tax, or adoption of an additional 1% local sales and use tax?
I agree.
Because the 1% is already on the books statewide. My question is, are we putting something on the ballot that says specifically an additional 1%?
I'll check with him, but I think it's, here again, it's using the languages, but I'll find out for sure.
Understood. The other thing is that it probably, at some point between now and final passage, I think that every council member needs to consider that there's been discussion, that, the one could be 1.5, it could be 1.2, it could be 1. That's not for anyone that is, it certainly is not the position of Mr. Smith or myself that it has to be 1%. I do believe that council should seriously consider what that range should or shouldn't be. I think the general discussion as this was coming forward and being presented to the attorney, that he needed to construct the language and comply with the language as required by the state election. I'm sorry, I want to make sure I'm referring to the right entity, but this is going to be submitted to the state. We do need to make a determination as to what that range might be to appropriately need the revenue shortfall that we anticipate, now and in the future. So, I'm sorry, I got off on a tangent there. So, if you would have him check on that language of a 1% or of an additional 1%.
Okay, and as far as the amount, you know, if the council decided they wanted to change that, we would have to take action on that. You would have to take action on that prior to the February meeting, and to do so.
And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, just as a footnote of that, where I was going with that is, when we were discussing informally in the budget meeting, but also Mr. Smith and myself, of what could have the best possibility going in front of the voters and looking at comparable cities such as Mountain Home, Horseshoe Bend, as two examples of cities that have a 2% city sales tax. We felt, Rob, I don't want to speak for you, but if you agree, we felt that this was settling in on an area that, or a range that would be considered appropriate for, to request the voters that they might seriously consider 1%. But again, I think I would welcome input from all council members as to that rate, the additional rate.
Any other comments?
Oh, I've got a question for Steve. So you're saying that the 1%, I think you've already kind of made this apparent, but the reason that you're wanting to say it's 1% is because it would raise us to 2%, and we have surrounding, you said Horseshoe Bend is at 2% right now.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, now you're talking about in a different range. Are you making a suggestion? Do you have an idea in your head already, or is that just something that are you waiting for somebody else to suggest something?
I'm just saying that it's not set in stone.
Right.
And I'm certainly open to discussion. You know, if people feel that a higher rate, I'm just sharing the conversation between Mr. Smith and myself as we were trying to at least have a starting point for the discussion. We thought 1% would cover what we know is the shortfall going forward, the known shortfall of the reduced budget spending. And also we looked throughout the entire state of Arkansas at cities, not only of size, but in proximity to Cherokee Village. 2%, as I mentioned, is Horseshoe Bend and Mountain Home. That's where those communities are with their city sales tax. You have to go to Calico Rock is the closest, where you have above 2%, and they're at 3%.
Okay. Well, so earlier you talked about the $850,000, annual deficit that we're going to have. But this won't actually go into effect even if we can get them to vote for it until 2023.
Well, it actually, if we get it on the May ballot, fair question. So the earliest ballot that we can get on without having the city pay for a special election March. So we could go as early as March.
Okay.
But if we did, we would have to expend a pretty sizable amount because it's a special election. We're not really participating in any other form of election. And so we consulted with both county clerks that perhaps the May election would be the best choice, because then we can get on that election because that's your primary.
Right.
And it would be at no cost to the city. So we were trying to conserve city funds by getting on the May primary. Then once the voters decide one way or the other, then the results of that election have to be submitted to the Arkansas Election Commission. Forgive me if I misquoted
No, you're right.
the specific entity, but they have to then approve the results of the election. Then it goes to the Department of Finance and Administration to see if it complies with state regulations. And then the first date that we could actually go to businesses that are operating within the city, businesses that deliver goods and services into the city that would be subject to a sales and use tax, and provide them notification. The earliest that they would collect it would be the 1st of October. Generally, those receipts are collected through a quarter, submitted to the Department of Finance and Administration, and they remit those back to the community starting the 1st of the subsequent quarter. So the earliest that we would see, that explains a little more specifically, the earliest we would see any receipts as a result of this increase, if the voters approve it, would be January of '23.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Well, I mean, yeah, it answers the first part of my question.
Okay.
The second part of my question is, so you open the conversation up to changing that amount, and I don't know that you want to do that right now, but is 2% just a buffer? I mean, it's not going to correct the problem. Like you said, there's $1 million that we're going to allocate before we're even going to receive any help from this. This is a Band-Aid on a wound that's causing
I can take that one. We've already gone through each department, and as noted by the budget that we've approved for next year, we've already reduced our fire department, our street department, we've reduced those down. So we've taken care of about $600,000 by making those reductions. But that didn't cover our complete shortfall.
So then you add the 2%.
If we add this on now, then that will come closer to covering that shortfall. The city as a whole is going to have to start to take a look at bringing businesses into this area, businesses that produce tax income. And that will be our next area to really start to concentrate on. As Steve mentioned earlier, there is a group out there that's working on that very thing right now, and they'll be bringing ideas to the city. It's not up to a municipality to go out and find businesses, but it is up to certain citizens within that city to go out and do that for us, and then they can bring those suggestions to us.
So as far as
right now, what we're doing is we're just putting bubble gum in the hole to keep the ship from leaking.
So what it is up to the municipality to make it desirable for them to come to the city.
Absolutely. And that's one reason why, personally, I stay at 1%, so we're not running people off, because Wendy's doesn't want to come in here and charge 3.5 cents tax for a hamburger. So that would be a drawback for someone like them. Also notably, we're asking our citizens to increase taxes. And I don't feel comfortable going to the citizens at this present time and asking for a 2.5 cent sales tax increase. We can go back to the well. We can do this again. If we are good stewards of the money that we're asking our citizens to give us at this point, and we can prove to them that we can handle that money responsibly and do the things that the citizens of this city feel like need to be done, then we can go back to those citizens with all of those things in our pocket and say, okay, we've done this. Would you trust us again to do it again? That's where I'm at with this proposal. But I do understand Steve has ideas that we could go into this with a little bit more, and we could do a little bit more. So we all have our ideas on how this could work for us.
But it's not realistic to say that raising this another 0.5% is going to put us on the road to returning to the status quo that we were at last year.
I think Peter brought that up earlier. We can manage with what we've got, but it's not pretty. Okay. And that's one thing that, as a council, we have to look for the best interest of the citizens that we represent. And right now, this is the best thing we can do short term, and then plan on the long term to create more revenue.
One, excuse me, to add some more to what you're asking about, Mr. Hill, is that if this 1% sales tax would be approved by the citizens, that would put us at 2% sales tax.
Right.
That would match some of these cities that have been mentioned. Anything above that is going to make it higher. And another thing that I don't know off the top of my head is whether these cities also have a real millage assessed against their citizens either. We're at a 5% mill, which is based on your real property. So I don't know whether Mountain Home or Horseshoe Bend have a millage, and if they do, what the amount is. Other consideration, we were talking about shortfall, and if you're looking down the road, that this is something that council members are going to have to consider. If we're going to have quality employees around here, you know, next year not all employees are going to be getting a raise. You're going to have to pay people more because the wages are going to go up. Inflation is going to drive them up, and they're going to go up around here. And you know, for example, they talk about $15 per hour minimum. If we're going to meet that, we've got to have a lot more money than we've got coming in from now, and particularly from a sales tax. And in any business, that's your biggest expense, is personnel. Your cost, your salaries, your insurance, any other expenses related to that. And that's a pretty extensive proposition. That's something that's going to have to be faced and dealt with. In relation to holding the election, I'm going to correct you, Mr. Thompson. There isn't a charge for an election. Every time they have a voting takes place in this room, the city has to pay a portion.
But it's minimal compared to
A special election, yeah, yes. But we still get charged for it, and that varies from the type of election too.
And I'll get the particulars between now and next council meeting as to what exactly the charges are if we pursue my point that I was trying to make, and you know, is that it is substantially more money to go in for a special election, and we bear the full cost of that, rather than the state. You know, you have all these other entities that are, you know, county, state, local officials that are in a primary election. So I'll get the particulars on it, exact numbers between now and next council meeting.
Well, if there's no other further discussion on
Mr. Christophe.
Oh, Mr. Christophe.
Given the special election, is SID going to have a special election for their members, for their?
That's a separate thing.
Well, what I'm saying though, if there's going to be a special election,
they're not under that governance.
That's a completely different type of election, completely different. That's on the property owners and not on the voters, if that makes sense. So,
I talked to Gary, he said the only thing they were charged with was to fund
one way, with the city, you have to be a registered voter. With SID, you just have to be a property owner, and you don't have to live in Cherokee Village. It's everybody that owns property gets to vote.
I'm good.
Okay, thank you.
okay. I was thinking if it wasn't the same
No, it's not.
Yeah.
SID is probably going to
Two separate entities. Don't.
I understand that, but if it was a special election by both parties on the same day, you might be able to reduce cost.
No, they're running their own election.
Okay.
County clerk's running this election. Okay, if no other comments, the next item on our new business is the appointment of to Planning and Zoning Commission, in keeping with trying to have ward representatives on the commission, and we lost one, and I'm recommending Tom Trumpy from Ward 2 to be appointed. He has background in building trades. I think it would be an important factor on that group, and kind of keep the representation. We have representatives from every ward, and that'll allow him to attend. If we do that tonight, that way he can be available for the first meeting.
I would motion that we put Tom Trumpy in that position. I second it.
Motion by Mr. Smith, second by Mr. Martin to confirm Mr. Trumpy's appointment. I think we better have a roll call vote, please.
Roland?
Yes.
Christophe?
Yes.
Hill?
Yes.
Heffley,
Yes.
Ishmael,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Okay, Mr. Trumpy, you are now officially a member of the Planning and Zoning Commission. And if they hold a meeting scheduling, it'll be January the 3rd, 1 o'clock. Next item is Mr. Martin's addition to the agenda of holding working meetings. Okay, Mr. Martin?
I would like to start having a working meeting the Monday prior to the city council meeting, so that discussions like we had here tonight can be had there, and then this meeting will only last 10 to 15 minutes. I've seen court do it, so I think if we, like some of my questions, and if we have the ability to talk amongst ourselves, it's not something that has to be recorded by a clerk. It's not a legislative session, so specifically the topic will be what's coming up on the agenda, but we could talk about, you know, the tax, you know, we'll all be in the same room, or whoever shows up will be in that room, and we can discuss some of those things that should probably be discussed prior to the meeting, so that at the meeting we're all know where we sit, if that makes sense.
But that would be an open meeting.
Yes, all meetings are open meetings,
Okay.
correct.
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, I don't think that this requires the participation of everyone on council, just those of us who
Anybody that wants to show
would
up.
like to be in.
Right, and I would make the suggestion that, to make it fun, Mayor, hopefully he's gonna show up, and he used to be at the ones I used to have, when I was on city council before. But maybe it'd be interesting if somebody from the council or whoever shows up, a different person shares it each time, so they can run the flow of the meeting. And get the feeling of what the mayor.
I'm afraid if we have, I'm not in favor of working meetings unless it's really, really necessary. I'm meeting out. I'm aged enough in meetings. And as far as maybe not running again, that's still up for grabs. But you know, questions can be answered, you know, if you call the right party prior to the meeting. And I think having a debate in a regular meeting is worthwhile. You
Well,
know.
this is a legislative session, and this doesn't allow the public to
But it's
chime
a
in.
bit, actually it's a business meeting, and during a business meeting, you're supposed to be discussing what you're voting on. And
Well, and we can still discuss it at the meeting, but at least everybody in the room will know where everybody's sitting. And you can participate, or you can't participate. So that's what I'd like to start doing, and I'd like to have the city hall available to me on a Monday. All I need technically is 3 aldermen that agree with me, and we can start doing it.
I think that's still going to be classified as a council meeting.
No, it's a working meeting, and it's...
Well, there's no such thing as a working
Yes,
meeting.
there is, yes. Look
It's still a council meeting. You can say
Correct.
it's a working meeting, but still a
Correct.
council meeting.
Correct. Just, that's what it's called. And you can show up or not show up. And I guarantee you, I'll record them for you so you can see what happens. I have no problem.
I can't do that. That has to be, the clerk, anytime you meet like that, the clerk will have to be
No, the clerk
here.
does not have to be at a working meeting.
I'm afraid, I'll check with the attorney, but Municipal League says yes.
You know, as long as it's recorded, I don't think they'll have a problem with it. And yes, you can record it either way. However you want it done. But I would like to start having that, and I make a motion that we have a working meeting. Do I have a second?
I will second that.
Motion by Mr. Martin, second by Mr. Christophe.
I do have a comment to make though. Given the fact that, I think it's important right now, given the fact that we're looking to increase the sales tax, and it's going to go before the public in an election, I think it's an important thing to have a lot of this ironed out, and we can do that more so during a working meeting like this. I think it's important at this
We can put a time limit on the
time.
meeting, and a speaker time limit. Whoever's chairing can, or we can, as a group, can come up with what we want to do there. That's fine.
I have a question. So you've done one of these before?
I've done lots of these before.
Okay, so I've heard the comment made that this is still it's still a council meeting, even though you're going on a working meeting. If the mayor's there and the clerk goes, can we vote that day?
No, it's not a legislative session.
No.
Okay. Well, I'm just asking, like, technically, could we? That's what I'm asking.
No, you cannot.
So it's not a council meeting, it's a
You can have a straw vote, but you can't
Mr.
legislate.
Martin, can I ask you a question?
You couldn't even get a straw vote.
Just on this issue that you brought before, your motion that you put on the floor, is it possible, because of the proximity of having to carry this issue, and then this...
I don't know what the issue is.
Let me...
Okay, sorry.
Let me finish. The issue that we've discussed earlier, prior to your motion, was the fact that we've got to get out in the community, whoever wants to participate. But there's been some discussion about the possibility of having some town halls, getting in front of the public and explaining the need for the ordinance that is being worked on by the city attorney.
Okay.
Being that that is such a critical issue, would it not be, I would just only suggest, I'm not disputing at all the motion that you put on the table. I'm asking, would you consider delaying that until we get beyond the town hall meetings that we need to get as many councilmen involved with, we need to get the mayor involved with, we need to get as many people that are sitting on these special groups that are bringing forward ideas. But there is one issue that is so critical to this city's financial health, and that is the additional sales tax. And all I'm saying is it may be that if we could have the focus that unless there's something that is significantly above that in terms of priority, that between now and the time, especially between now and say the 1st of March, but January, February, and March really needs to be a time where the citizens of the community can come together, ask questions about what we're contemplating on a sales tax, because it's such a major issue. I'm not discounting the fact that there can't be other special things that come up, but if we just automatically start convening another meeting beyond city council meeting, that perhaps we may lose some of the focus on the necessity of getting the issues in front of our citizens on this sales tax that's going to be on the ballot in May. I just offer that as...
and that's very good. The reason I want to have a working meeting, really want to have a working meeting, is because technically we're not supposed to be talking to each other about city business outside of the meetings, because it's supposed to be a public forum. And a lot of us don't get to see each other unless we're sitting at this meeting. That's a legislative session. So I would, the mayor discussed this with me back in 2005. I got some letters from him about working meetings. And back then, it was suggested by Municipal League that it have a specific subject, and that's why I said before the meeting, so we can discuss the agenda. Because if it's about the agenda, we could start throwing out ideas of it. And if we want to stay away from the text in that particular meeting, I can be persuaded not to broach that subject. But I'd still like to see the city start planning 30 years down the road. We can't go from administration to administration. There's things that are going to be happening. Sewers is one of them. And if we don't start plotting and figuring out where those things are going to go and acquiring land where we need to acquire land, then we're going to be in a world of hurt just like we are right now with the finances. And you can talk to people in Highland and ask them about how their nice pressure system is working. And you can talk to the people in Ash Flat and say, well, most of that is gravity flow. Isn't that great? So there's things that we should be looking at and approaching in the long term. I would like to see the senior members of council tutor and mentor the junior members of council. I'll be one too. But I mean, this gentleman has asked me about resources from the Municipal League before, Mr. Heflin. So that shows he has got an open mind. And my opinions are my opinions. They're not everybody's opinions. And I'm with that. I believe that. We can have a discussion here and seem like we're mad with each other, but I really don't have an ill will or feeling towards anybody. It might look it, I might get loud, but that's why I like the working meeting, because it's more relaxed. It's not a formal thing. It's not you have to motion, you have to do this. It depends on who's running the meeting has it. And I really don't want it to go on for hours. I'd like it to be, cap it at an hour. You could speak for 3 minutes or something, just so that we don't, you know, and if we have hit a topic that we want to talk about next month, then we, you know, talk about it next month. But I'm specifically looking for agenda and getting us together prior to a meeting so that, you know, like the questions I asked, you know, I'm going to be recording it, I'll put it on the air, I'm going to do it. I've done it before. If you want to see old working meetings, let me know, I'll show you all the old ones I got. But basically, I need, or I would love us to get together, other than a formal meeting, to, you know, bring up some of these topics, because I think some council members feel that they're, you know, out of some loops. I kind of feel like I'm out of some loops.
There are a lot of loops.
Yeah,
and right now we've got other people who are involved in creating the city.
They're not the ones that were put in these seats.
No, I'm
and
agreeing
these
with you.
seats are the seats that matter. Not, sorry to say, not planning and zoning people, not committees, but it's the people that have to make the final decision. And they should have a chance to talk amongst themselves a little bit more relaxed than a formal meeting. And that's what I'm looking for.
Peter?
Yes?
I hate to interrupt, but we have a motion on the floor in a second, so we need to vote. But what if we just have a compromise and we would start that in February? That gives us time to
Would Mr. Thompson,
continue with the sales tax like we need to. It could be February or March.
I'm agreeable to that in the motion.
Okay. Working
February
meeting
then?
starting in March.
March or February? She said February.
February.
She said February or March.
Which one is it, Pam? February or March?
It does not matter to me. It was just a suggestion. You guys can pick.
Okay, I'll change my motion to February.
Okay.
I'll second.
Second still stands? Okay.
Okay, motion's been changed to start working meetings in February
And that'll
2nd.
be the Monday right prior to the regular.
The first Monday in February?
No, that'll be the third Monday. That'll be the one before the regular set, so we have a couple days, because we should all have our packets and everything that Monday.
Okay.
Okay, the Monday immediately prior to the regular council meeting.
Correct.
Yeah, put that in the motion that way.
Did you put a time on it?
Is there a time?
6:30 like we meet here?
6:30 would be, Pam, does that work?
Works for me.
Okay.
Get the time down too, 6:30.
6:30.
Okay. Any other discussion on that motion?
Other than just.
Let's have a roll call vote, please.
One second. What all do you need do you need anything to get it started, presented?
No,
We'll just start, right?
we show up on that day and
Start talking.
start talking.
Cool. All right, that's all I need.
I think I'd like to see a little more details of what it's gonna look like before.
It's going to be us sitting around a desk.
Just a roundtable discussion.
Basically, that's it. And
Okay.
then people sitting here, and at the time, we could let them talk if we want to.
Okay.
We did do that for solar ordinance. We did have an open meeting.
Deal.
That was a one-topic meeting, though.
Well, I
It's a
did
one-topic meeting.
I did them from 2005 to 2010.
But I will check with the municipal league, see if there are any restrictions on having that.
Last time we checked, it was, it should have a topic such as.
I think we're up for a vote here, guys.
Yep.
Yeah.
Roll call vote, please.
Martin,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Ishmael,
Yes.
Heffley,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Christie,
Yes.
Rowland.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Okay. Next item, well, we'll move executive session up, so I don't know how long that's going to be. Anyone want to make any public comments about city business?
In the back.
Come up to the microphone. Please state your name.
My name is Kathy Ingalls. I'm a resident of Cherokee Village. I've lived here less than 1 year.
Please remove the mask.
Can you take your mask off and speak in the microphone,
Did you
please?
not understand me? Was it on?
No.
I'm so sorry. My name is Kathy Ingalls. I'm a resident of Cherokee Village, and I've lived here less than 1 year. During that time, I've had a chance to talk to the mayor about what I've seen as far as ordinance, city ordinances, you know, just things that haven't been up to par. And I know that you've done some things as far as giving citations. And I would just like to ask the city council and the mayor to please ponder when you have businesses that you feel are in a violation, if you could work with them rather than just chase them out. Because you can starve out a business by giving too many citations. You're looking for revenue, you know, be careful of, I guess, if you want to have a sales tax and a 1% increase, you know, I don't know what they do over in Ash Flat, what their percentage is, or what Highlands is. But if you're running off a business, they're going to move somewhere else, and people are going to purchase where that sales tax is less money. So I'm asking you to please consider working with businesses rather than just imposing heavy fines over and over again and then running them out of town. That's all I've got to say today.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hey, I had a question for you. Miss Engel,
Yes.
what's, do you have a business in specific that you're speaking of right now?
Yeah, it's called The Store.
The store?
Yeah,
Okay, and where is that located? I'm not aware.
Choctaw Center.
Okay.
Mayor
Okay,
signed he signed the ticket.
okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other comments?
Yes, sir, I would like to address the council. Sir, my name is Marvin Van Dyke. My two sons are the owners of the store. We moved into Cherokee Village after we left 3 years prior. We were in this location, never had an issue until we moved back into this store. We've had accusations placed upon us from a code enforcement officer. He went to the businesses that surround me, saying that we must be doing something illegal because there's no way that we could be possibly doing this. He made the accusation that we're living in the store. He has no proof or anything like that of that. And he cited my son again just this week for one of our storage vehicles that is a commercial bus. That vehicle was behind the store for approximately 2 weeks this time because Pioneer Auction was closed during the week of Thanksgiving. They did not have a sale. I do not have access to get into their secured area. So the bus was there for 2 weeks. We had that bus because I don't have enough storage facility in that unit for everything that I had for the Black Friday sales and stuff like that. Now, these accusations are unfounded. I drove around today with another person, and I've got pictures of other businesses. The accusation that we have trash and other things like that. I drove around, and within a half an hour, I've got pictures of businesses in Cherokee Village that have more trash or more takeaway from the environment. I also went out today and rented another store out of Cherokee Village, so I will be gone. Now, we
have a very good business, been established for over 7 years. And if that's what you're going to continue to do, chastise businesses and stuff like that are trying to come into this community, you're going to have a tough road to hoe. And you're going to be looking for money someplace else. I'm sorry, but that's, maybe I'm being too strong, but that's the facts. Thank you very much for your time.
Entertain a motion to move to executive session for personnel. Your second.
Second.
Motion, Mr. Martin, second by Mr. Smith to move to executive session for personnel. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Session of City Council will resume and there will be action taken as a result of the executive session. Entertain a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Mr. Martin, second by Mr. Smith to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Night, Pam.
Meeting's adjourned.